Dear friend, welcome back to our journey through Moses, the servant of God. In this chapter, we shift our focus from the dramatic events of the plagues to something quieter, deeper yet no less miraculous, the transformation of Moses' character. Yes, the plagues shook Egypt. Yes, they changed the course of history. But perhaps the greatest transformation was what God was doing inside one man. The man who once said, "I can't speak." The man who once begged, "Send someone else," now stood before Pharaoh again and again, unflinching, unmoved, unafraid. Scripture says Moses was faithful in all his house. Hebrews 32. Let's take a moment and trace how that kind of faithfulness was formed. When Moses first received his call in the wilderness, he resisted. He doubted God's choice. He doubted himself. Who am I to go to Pharaoh? I am slow of speech. Why would they listen to me? And yet God persisted, and Moses obeyed. But oh, how far he had to grow. By the time of the 5th plague, the plague of disease upon Egypt's livestock, something had changed. Gone were the doubts. Gone was the hesitation. When God said, "Go," Moses went. When God said, "Speak," Moses spoke. Without delay, without fear, without bargaining. This is one of the clearest marks of spiritual growth. Instant obedience. Not dramatic, not loud, but life-changing. Every time we say yes to God without arguing or postponing, our faith deepens. Our soul strengthens. We become more like Jesus. When Moses first received his call in the wilderness, he resisted. He doubted God's choice. He doubted himself. Who am I to go to Pharaoh? I am slow of speech. Why would they listen to me? And yet God persisted, and Moses obeyed. But oh, how far he had to grow. By the time of the 5th plague, the plague of disease upon Egypt's livestock, something had changed. Gone were the doubts. Gone was the hesitation. When God said, "Go," Moses went. When God said, "Speak," Moses spoke. Without delay, without fear, without bargaining. This is one of the clearest marks of spiritual growth. Instant obedience. Not dramatic, not loud, but life-changing. Every time we say yes to God without arguing or postponing, our faith deepens. Our soul strengthens. We become more like Jesus. In the 5th plague, Egypt's livestock, cattle, oxen, camels, sheep were struck down. It was devastating. Rich and poor alike suffered. Commerce halted, fields emptied, the economy trembled. But in the land of Goshen, not one of the cattle of the children of Israel died. God was not just judging, he was preserving. He was teaching Moses and all who watched that obedience places you under divine protection. Then came the 6th plague, boils and sores. This was deeply personal, painful, humbling, and again, Moses obeyed. He stood publicly likely before Pharaoh's court and tossed ashes into the air. The air itself became a carrier of judgment. Boils broke out on man and beast. Even the proud Egyptian magicians could not stand before Moses. They were struck down too. Think about Moses for a moment. This wasn't a man who loved conflict. He was naturally stern or severe. He had spent 40 years as a shepherd, quiet, gentle, meek. And now, he was God's chosen instrument to deliver blow after blow of divine judgment. Surely it broke his heart. Surely it cost him something. But he did not flinch. Because true faith doesn't pretend to be more merciful than God. It trusts that God's justice is perfect, and it obeys even when the task is hard. With the 7th plague, hail and fire, something else begins to shift. Aaron, who once spoke for Moses, now fades into the background. God begins speaking directly to Moses, and Moses stands alone. He no longer stammers. He no longer hides. The man who once pleaded, "I can't speak," now speaks with authority. God didn't hold Moses to the bargain he made in fear. God let Moses grow, and as he did, Moses stepped into his calling more fully than ever before. That's grace. God may permit us to make fearful bargains, but he won't let those fears define us forever. If we grow, if we step forward, he will lift us beyond our past weaknesses. The hailstorm was terrifying. Thunder roared, fire streaked the sky. Hail fell like stones. It destroyed Egypt's crops, vineyards, livestock, and trees. And yet, in Goshen, there was peace. Pharaoh was shaken. For the first time he confessed, "I have sinned." Moses could have gloated. He could have turned away. Instead, he prayed. He walked into the storm, lifted his hands, and interceded, and the storm stopped. Next came the 8th plague, the locusts. Moses' tone grew bolder. He no longer asked. He declared. He no longer begged Pharaoh to yield. He demanded it. Pharaoh's officials were terrified. "Let them go," they said. "Why destroy the land?" Pharaoh tried to negotiate. "Only the men may go." But Moses said, "No. Everyone must go. Young and old, sons and daughters. Not a hoof will be left behind." His confidence was now complete. Then came the locusts. They arrived on an east wind. They devoured every green thing left in Egypt, every tree, every vine, every blade of grass. And once again, Pharaoh called Moses back. He confessed. He begged. And once again, Moses prayed. And God answered. But then came the 9th plague, darkness. There was no warning, just silence and blackness. For 3 days, Egypt sat in fear. They couldn't see one another. They couldn't move. The temples were silent. The sun god Ra was gone, but in Goshen, there was light. God was making it unmistakably clear. There is a difference between those who obey and those who resist, between those who fear the Lord and those who mock him. Pharaoh called Moses once more. "Go," he said, "take your people, but leave your animals behind." But Moses stood tall. "No," he said, "everything goes. Not a hoof will be left behind." Pharaoh erupted in rage. "Get out! The next time I see your face, you will die." And Moses replied, "You are right. I will never see your face again." But before he left, Moses delivered one final warning, calm, clear, and full of authority. He spoke of the final judgment to come, and then he walked away. This was not the same Moses we met in Midian. This was a man who had grown, through obedience, through hardship, through faith. He had once run from a serpent. Now he walked through storms. He had once begged to be left out. Now he stood as God's voice before kings. And friend, if God could grow Moses like that, he can grow you too. Thank you for joining us for Chapter 9, How the Character of Moses Grew. If this message encouraged you, please share it with someone. Subscribe to our channel. We're walking daily through the spiritual journey of Moses and beyond. We'll see you in Chapter 10.